Experimental Hexblade is incredibly powerful, yet still very underrated on a bunch of champs, while Axiom Arc is an amazing pickup after its recent buffs. So we've got all this and much more to cover in today's video as we bring you guys 10 of the most OP new builds for 25.17. And it's no secret that League's ranking system is designed to trap you. It pulls you in with those games where everything clicks and you carry hard, only to balance it with frustrating matches that feel unwinnable from the start. This cycle keeps you grinding, hoping for change, but never quite breaking through. What most players don't realize is that escaping this cycle requires specific skills and strategies tailored to your exact rank. That's where SkillCapped comes in. We're the only service in this industry that has invested millions of dollars into identifying what actually works at every tier. Our challenger coaches have mapped out the best and most useful strategies that turn hard-stuck players into consistent climbers. And you can access all this expertise for less than $9 a month with our annual plan. We're so confident in our method that our business model depends on your success. Climb at least 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped or claim a full refund, no questions asked. Stop wasting time on the ranked treadmill. Start climbing today with proven strategies designed specifically to break through your current rank. Check us out by clicking the link in the top right corner or in the description below. And with that being said, let's get into it. So one top lane champ who's incredibly powerful with Hexblade that not a lot of players are paying attention to is Dr. Mundo. It's not a first or second item on Mundo, as you still want your Warmogs and Heartsteel. However, slotting in Hexblade third can work extremely well. The degree of success that Mundo is able to have in a team fight is entirely based on whether or not he can stick onto his targets. By going Experimental Hexblade, you basically get a free ghost whenever you pop your R with Mundo, which allows him to stay a lot more mobile in fights. You also get the 30 ultimate ability haste from Hexblade, so this allows for Mundo to be a lot more consistently impactful in the later stages of the game, as when R is down, you really don't want to be fighting. And even though Hexblade isn't a tank item, the other stats are not wasted on Mundo at all because he is more of a fighter himself, so having additional attack damage and attack speed allows for his E to hit really hard. So Hexblade Mordekaiser has been going around over the past patch, however, there's a slight variation to the setup that we think is really being slept on. So you will continue to rush Rylai's, go into Hexblade second, and then your third item is where things get interesting, as Nashor's Tooth can work really well. With the attack speed from Hexblade and Nashor's, it makes it so that Mordekaiser's dueling power when he has R available is absolutely insane. You don't even need to land your abilities when running this build due to all the attack speed you get, and it makes Mordekaiser even more of a stat check champion if he gets ahead. Now, of course, by going for Nashor's instead of something like Liandry's or Riftmaker, you're going to be a bit more vulnerable due to lacking health. So the most optimal time to run this Hexblade into Nashor's build is if you're against an enemy comp that is very difficult for you to teamfight against, or if your entire team is feeding and you need to win through split pushing. Let's say the enemy comp has an Ezreal ADC, an Ahri mid, and a Kindred jungle. With all that mobility, getting in range to even use your R in a fight is going to be a lot more difficult, so playing for this split push build will work great. So Qiyana jungle has become much more popular since her recent buffs, but the majority of players are running the incorrect setup. Let's start with the rune page, as most Qiyana players are taking Electrocute. However, First Strike is what's winning at a substantially higher rate. It's almost a 2% gap between the two runes, which is quite significant. What makes First Strike a really great pickup on Qiyana is that the additional gold income that it provides allows her to hit item spikes quicker and snowball incredibly hard. Lethality as a stat is going to be stronger the earlier you pick it up, as the more base armor the enemy gets with levels or the more armor they buy from the shop makes lethality as a stat less valuable. So getting to your lethality core as fast as possible is really important, and First Strike helps to enable this. Just getting to Ghostblade Spike as quick as possible is the main thing, as the item providing all the movement speed allows for Qiyana to be really active around the map. So here's what the complete setup is looking like as you rush Ghostblade into Opportunity for the core, followed by First Strike as the Keystone rune. So a new Hecarim build that Dantes has been playing over the past patch revolves around rushing Death's Dance. The main selling point that Death's Dance has over alternatives like Eclipse or Spear of Shojin is that it makes you a lot more tanky earlier in the game. You follow up the build by going Black Cleaver second, and with the health from Cleaver combined with the armor and passive from Death's Dance, you're extremely durable in the mid game. Now, of course, Death's Dance does provide armor as its defensive stat, so it's not an item you're going to want to rush in every single game. If the enemy comp is full AP, then it makes no sense to prioritize Death's Dance. However, in the correct spots, when the enemy comp is majority physical damage, the value of the item goes up tremendously. The third item with this build is going to be quite unique, as you're taking Manamune. So Manamune is going to slot in third, and you'll immediately have the upgrade to Mirror Mana because you will grab Tier on your first base and get that fully stacked out by the mid game. Mirror Mana is really nice to provide a lot of additional AD, as you'll end up with a perfect mix of tankiness and damage. With the buffs to Kog'Maw for this patch, mid lane Kog is actually back in a viable spot, so let's cover what build you should be looking to run. When it comes down to the rush item on Kog'Maw, there's really nothing better than Ludens. Second item, you're going to want to grab Archangels, as AP Kog is extremely reliant on being able to spam out his spells to be most effective, so having a large mana pool is key. Just make sure you're picking up a tier on your first base. You don't want to start start tier right off the jump, as going for Dorans is best for lane. Third item, you have two main options being Rabadons and Shadow Flame. If you have the gold to build into a large rod, then you really want to prioritize Rabadons. Shadow Flame does have the smoother build path, so if you don't ever end up basing with 1200 gold, then opting for Shadow Flame over Rabadons is completely fine. And then for the Keystone Rune, it's going to be Comet, and make sure you're taking Mana Flow and Presence of Mind to help with your mana issues. Horizon Focus was the lone mage item buffed in 25.17, and is looking like a very powerful pickup on Zoe. Zoe has been played with Horizon a bit in the past, but it's never become more popular than Lichbane or Shadow Flame in that second item slot. With the buffs to this patch and Horizon becoming 250 gold more efficient, there's a lot more incentive to prioritize the item now. What's really nice about Horizon on Zoe is that if you land some poke with your Q in the mid game and proc the Hyper Shot passive, it then makes following up with E so much easier if the enemy tries to dip into the Fog of War. You'll get the vision reveal that lasts for 3 seconds, so watching where the enemy tries to run and then throwing your E through a wall to hit them makes Zoe's teamfight impact so much more reliable. The item also has more benefits over the likes of Lichbane or Shadow Flame, as you get 25 ability haste, while Lichbane offers 10 and Shadow Flame has none. Horizon Focus is cheaper as well at 2750 gold, while Shadow Flame is 3200 and Lichbane is 3000. The only downside to Horizon Focus is that it will deal slightly less damage. If we look at these three comparison clips here, a simple E into Q combo on a squishy target in the mid game deals 1107 damage with Horizon Focus, 1058 with Lichbane, but it will be more if you get just one auto off, and then Shadow Flame comes in at 1154 damage. So when it comes down to Shadow Flame, you have to ask yourself, is a 47 damage increase to your pick combo worth receiving no haste at all? Getting no reveal passive and being 450 gold more expensive than Horizon Focus? There's no cut and dry answer to that because the value from the reveal passive can't be put into an exact gold value. However, there's definitely a big draw to building Horizon Focus on Zoe as your second item. So an item that we've started seeing played to some pretty good success on Zeri over the past patch is Experimental Hexblade. It's currently got a slightly lower win rate than Yuntal Wild Arrows. However, that doesn't mean Hexblade isn't valuable in the correct spots. Throughout the entirety of last patch, Hexblade had a 50.7% win rate on Zeri, while Yuntal sat at 51.6%. The two items are completely different in nature though, as the value from Yuntal comes from its higher DPS, while the value from Hexblade comes from its durability and synergy with Zeri's R. Where Hexblade can work especially well is against a team comp that has a bunch of heavy dive threat. If there are multiple enemies who will be wanting to jump right onto you in fights and be up in melee range, then opting for Hexblade so that you can get more health and kiting power will be really nice to have. If you're paired with an enchanter support, or if the enemy team lacks considerable dive threat, then just going for Yuntal so that you have higher DPS is definitely the play. Try to look at it from this perspective. The higher DPS potential does not matter at all if you're dying at the start of a fight. So if the health and kiting strength actually allows you to survive, then the DPS you're able to get off in a fight can end up being higher with Hexblade just due to staying alive for longer. And then a second ADC that you need to start running Hexblade on as a core purchase is Vayne. So Vayne is a bit different than Zeri because it's not actually Hexblade that you want to rush. You still want your two core damage items with Kraken or Blade Rush and then Rage Blade second. However, Hexblade slotted in as your third purchase is going to work incredibly well. You really don't need more damage with Vayne once you have your two core items completed, so opting for Hexblade so that you can survive better in fights is amazing. The underlying statistics are absolutely phenomenal with Hexblade slotted in third on Vayne, as it's currently her highest win rate third purchase. You already have pretty good kiting potential in fights due to the mobility from Q, but when you add on the 20% movement speed from Hexblade passive, it just makes the champ so slippery and difficult to stick onto. Getting 30 ability haste for Vayne R is amazing as well because you have no other way of accessing haste in your build, and a Vayne with R available has so much more survivability and DPS threat. So with the Horizon Focus buffs coming through for this patch, a build you'll want to be trying on your Vel'Koz support revolves around rushing the item. Horizon has a lot of power as an item on Vel'Koz because he gets so much value out of its reveal passive. The one downside to Vel'Koz is that he's squishy, and that makes face-checking Brush very risky in the mid-game. With Horizon Focus though, since you get the reveal if your Q lands on an enemy, scouting Brush and then forcing enemies to leave that Brush once they realize that they are revealed allows for you to take back control of the map. A lot of the time in mid-game, you will end up landing your Q over a wall, and if you don't have the reveal passive from Horizon Focus, then following up on that Q hit is a lot harder. With the reveal though, you'll be able to see how low the enemy is, and if following with your R would be worth it, so the item has so much value on the champ. In a way, the reveal passive can actually lead to more DPS, because if you can't see an enemy in a brush but your Q lands, then randomly following up with your combo doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't know who you've actually hit. If you notice the reveal proc though, and notice that you've just hit an enemy squishy target, then you can use R and get a huge chunk out on them, which can lead to your team getting full control of the objective that's spawning. And then for our final build of the patch, we've got one for Pyke that has become a lot better for 25.17 as it involves taking Axiom Arc as a core purchase. So Axiom Arc was buffed for this patch, with its cost going down from 3,000 2,000 to 2,750. This is especially nice for Pyke because gold income as a support is much less reliable, so access to your items faster is really big. The passive value from Axiomark can be absolutely massive on Pyke because he has the potential to proc it multiple times in a fight. If you're unfamiliar with the passive, whenever you score a takedown, your R cooldown gets reduced by 15% plus 0.15% per every point of lethality. So if Pyke is able to get a couple of resets with his R, then the cooldown of Pyke R is going to be back up by the time the enemies respawn, which just amplifies the snowball potential of Pyke a ton. Your rush item on Pyke is going to be the same as always with Umbral Glaive, but it's Axiomark in the second slot that you're going to want to try. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it everyone, those are 10 of the most OP new builds that you can play for 25.17. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.